open our regular meeting at 6:30. We need a roll call vote.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
I assure you he's here.
It's here.
And Mr. Bensie's absent this evening.
All right. Item 2, for those of you that are following, is civil reflection. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the agenda as printed.
Second?
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Okay, item 4, disclosure of council. Doesn't seem to be any, so there's none. Item 5, we're up to public comment. These are limited to 3 minutes. Yes, do things that are on the agenda.
William White, Main Street, Bath. I have a couple issues with the minutes that you have on the agenda be approved. The Planning Commission meeting minutes from August 23rd. 2 pages worth of general public comments about opposition to this business. This is a commercial endeavor. This couldn't be a worse location. I agree with everything that anybody else said. What are they talking about? It doesn't say anywhere in those minutes what project they're discussing. How the heck can you expect us to understand that? You got, hopefully the board representative, Mr. Funes Bliss, can make sure their minutes are a little bit more accurate the next time. You got abbreviations, HOA board, which, what's that? Nobody is, typically, when you're writing minutes, you have abbreviations, you need to spell out what they stand for. The second one is the Township Board minutes from September 6th, earlier in the month. There you have a closed session to discuss material exempt from discussion. Now, I brought this up several times in the past. The Open Meetings Act requires that you state the purpose of the meeting, especially in the minutes. Otherwise, the public has no way of knowing if it was actually a legal reason to have a closed session. You can't just say we're having a closed session just because. No, there has to be a specific reason. It has to be, just like you said in today's packet, you have a closed session to discuss purchase of property. That's perfectly correct. But what is this one from last week? Says to discuss material exempt from discussion. You have to point that out, otherwise you're violating the Open Meetings Act. Other than that, repeating the same complaint from previous meetings. You aren't getting close enough to your microphones. All you can hear is a couple of people online. Everybody else is gumbled and jarbled and gumbled. Garbled and jumbled. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you put some money that you took away from the DDA in for community improvement. So I didn't see any of that in your budget. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you.
I didn't want to disappoint. Ray Kotke, Park Lake Road.
Just one thing I wanted to mention on your agenda, under item 13B, C, audio video equipment recommendation. I strongly urge you to approve this for 2022's budget, to put it in as soon as possible, so we can get it done and get it implemented. We at the Planning Commission would deeply appreciate especially the video part, the visual part. It helps a lot. And incidentally, the proposal that Taylor got mentions the 98-inch LED displays. Roughly, I measured it out, and that's a diagonal, but pretty much if you put a 4x8 sheet of plywood up there, that's what it would be. That's pretty much 16:9 ratio, and so that's kind of what you could see right there, is a 4x8 sheet of plywood. That's what the screen size would be for a 98-inch display. So that gives you a little bit. I mean, most of us know what a 4x8 sheet of plywood looks like. So it would really help in regards to people being able to read the agenda, you know, and all of the site plans and everything else. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Captain. Is there anybody else? Adam?
Yeah, I know. I should have read the
Yeah,
agenda. I came early and I got company at home, so I'll make
Item 6, so
I'll make this quick. Hopefully Supervisor Howe informed you that, and you know, it was approved, Mr. Almarigi, that you're the representative on our broadband task force. But you know, as it went originally, Bath was iced out. I called shenanigans on that, so we got 2 extra seats for Victor and Bath because of the significant amount of money you've invested into this broadband task force. So. You know, thank you for thank you for laying the groundwork, being out there at the front. You know, you should have been on that committee. I'm glad that it is now, and I think, like I said, your first meeting's gonna be when, December? October. Okay, so you have an organizational meeting in October, and like I said,
Late September.
yeah, everything goes well. Obviously, we'll know around December whether we've got that money. We can go ahead and move forward. How far we can move forward with the grant money, and otherwise we'll have to go alone. Other than that, change seems to be a constant around here. If you haven't been informed, County Administrator Craig Longnecker has told us he's retiring at the end of the year. So, yeah, not something I expected to have to deal with. Craig has been the deputy administrator before he was administrator for a good 20 years before that. So we had a 1-2 punch of Ryan Wood and Craig Longnecker there for a good 25 years, and Craig's only been there for about 2. I expected him to be there much longer. So we have to go through the process of hiring county administrator. There will probably be no shortage of applicants. These jobs don't come up very often. I wanted to make sure that the application period was long enough, so we looked at a tentative timeline, and I said, let's make it a good at least 5 weeks opening. Sometimes people get caught up in life, and they don't hear word of mouth there's an opening, and then they don't get their application time. I'd rather have like a 5-6 week opening. We've moved forward to hire a consultant. That person is going to help us trim to take. Let's say we get 15-20 applications. That person will go through, look at them, try to identify 3 to 5 to 6 people who really kind of rise up to that top level. We'll then proceed and have all 7 individuals interview that person. I'm glad we're going to do it that way rather than have a small group. I actually used my experience in Bath Township. Is that when we had to hire an administrator, we had all 7 people interview. We had to replace a trustee. We had all 7 people interview. It was a good process to get buy-in from everyone. So. It is our goal to have that person in place shortly after the first of the year. Craig is going to retire, I think, at the end of January, or at least the first week of February, somewhere in there. So we like that new person to be there for at least a 3 to 4 week overlap time in January. So that's our hope. And obviously, if we can make those decisions in December, that person may still have to take 4 or 6 weeks to unentangle themselves from their current position. So that is what's currently before us. So any questions or comments on that?
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I know.
Seriously.
Did not want to go through this.
How is he there? Craig is just really good at what he does. He's been there a long time.
He is, and like it's not just a matter of experience. It's also a matter of personality fit, with your board. And we're definitely looking for someone Midwest. We want someone who knows, who knows what the responsibilities of a Midwestern county is with a township form of government, because that's a definitely, that's not something you can learn on the fly. And we know there's other counties that are much stronger form of government, it's more command and control. You know, this is more of a federal partnership with our community, so we need someone who understands that, understands how to work with elected officials. You know, it's not, this is the budget and you're here to stay. It's like, you're an elected official, I'm an elected official, we all have to negotiate together.
Is Craig going to be involved?
He's not going to tell us who to hire, but he's going to advise us, yes.
Okay.
He's the one who sought out the consulting firms, and we made a choice out of the one, and he's going to help us with he actually, in the previous months, he's actually helped put together a document that will guide us going forward about if we ever have to hire a county administrator, so we actually have a policy in place. You know, we can always opt out of certain steps on it, and one of the steps he suggested was, you know, do a community study about what Clinton County is. We've already done enough studies. We know what it is. So we've told the consultants, you don't have to go and do that. We already know that. So, any other questions or comments?
Yes. Any other questions? I have
Any,
to-
Adams, or any chance of anybody from within filling that position?
Absolutely. We expect at least 1 or 2 people within to apply. But, you know, like I said, Craig was just a no-brainer because he'd been there for 20-plus years. And Ryan was leaving right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. There was a lot of unique circumstances here. We have a deputy administrator. I'd love to look at his qualifications. You know, he's only been with us 2 years. He hasn't really had a long enough streak to really interact with the board and for us to, you know, see what he's capable of. So I expect, you know, he probably will submit an application, probably another person in the county at least, maybe another. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions? Appreciate it. Okay, item 7, our consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda, excuse me.
Second.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, approval of the minutes. A, these are minutes of the Board of Trustees regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Trustee meeting of September 6, 2022 as presented. Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes, I was asleep at the switch, I had a question, but figured that we can't follow up, yes.
So we're going to do it next time.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 9, which is A. So now we have item 9, which is approval of vouchers.
Move to approve the vouchers.
Second.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes.
Okay. Item 10, for those of you who have an agenda, treasurer's report.
Yes, ma'am, thank you very much. I don't have any written report for you this evening. The only thing I'm gonna do is talk to you briefly. The township just recently finished up its summer tax period without penalty on the 14th of September. We haven't yet complied all the information here. We got the last disbursement to do. We'll run through the 15th. Next board meeting, I'll have the exact numbers of where you're at. Very similar to any other year as far as tax collection, as far as we're about 95% of the summer collection, the way it looks to me, has been collected. I'll have you an exact number at the next meeting. Other than that, there's lots to do this time of year. There's lots going on. We are gonna make another attempt to get started this month, at the end of the month here, with the Uniform Chart of Accounts. We got some setbacks for some problems that we didn't foresee having. So hopefully we'll have that up and running. They're talking 6 to 8 weeks to have this done. That'll have no effect on the 2022 financial statements, but it could have an effect on the 2023, but only if it's delayed a significant time. That's all I have for you tonight.
do that all the time. Item 11, committee appointments, doesn't seem to be any. Item 12, the township committee reports, there's none. Item 13, unfinished business. This is items for introduction and discussion. The planner, Miles Goldberg.
All right, so just wanted to briefly go over the 2023 through 2027 capital improvement plan. Just, I guess, briefly talk about the process. So all the discretionary spending projects were submitted to the planning department. Those projects were then brought to the planning commission. The applicant joined a meeting and presented those projects to the commission themselves, kind of talked about what they're proposing, you know, what the costs associated with that were, what some of the hurdles with that project would be, and then what their reasoning for bringing that project was. The two projects that were submitted were both turned in by the Parks Department and Department of Public Works, which was the multi-sport court and the pour-in place, both at the park here on Park Lake Road. And so the planning commission at the following meeting then proceeded to score the project with a rubric that I think was created the year prior to me coming to Bath Township. The multi-sport court scored at 48 out of 130, and the pour-in place, which replaces that kind of soft pad, if you don't know what that is, that the playground sits on, got an 85 out of 130. So the pour-in place scored higher. And you can maybe speak more to this, but it seemed to me like the planning commission determined that there was a greater need there. And then this report was compiled together and given back to the planning commission. They approved it, and now it's in front of you guys.
A question about the pour-in place.
Yeah.
So there's reference to the life expectancy of it. Is that just based on the amount of time that it's been in place, or is that based on indices of wear and tear?
I think that's the manufacturer specifications for this region of the country.
Okay. So, I mean, has there been an independent audit of the quality of the pour-in place, whether or not there's evidence that it needs to be repaired? My wondering is that we probably have less traffic than, say, a Lansing area park, which would be of the same vicinity for manufacturer recommendations.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's probably true. No, to my knowledge, that hasn't been the case. It's just the recommendation from the Department of Public Works.
It hasn't been an independent audit, but our staff have pointed out problems.
Yeah. And it has exceeded its manufacturer life by a couple of years. So they've let it ride for a couple of years now. They're basically saying it's gotten to the point where they don't feel comfortable with that. And it was pointed out at the planning commission meeting that the actual surface wear and tear wasn't too detrimental, but I guess the concern from staff is also what's going on under that foundation. And there are some concerns even about the materials used being eroded, and maybe in the future using materials that wouldn't erode as quickly. So kind of live and learn there, I guess. Any other questions?
Brian?
I wasn't at the meeting where we approved this, so I have a question on page 11.
Yeah.
Am I misreading the chart, or is that saying that we're going to have a cost every year through 27?
No, I appreciate that. So that's a good question. That got brought up, and I am 100% open to a better way to display this. So what this is trying to say is you see construction here, it says intended for 2023 to be scored every year not implemented. So what that's showing is that's the cost being carried over through all the years applied for. So both of these projects are applied for all 5 years to be scored. So if it's not picked up this year, it'll just go on the roll for being rescored next year, and we'll just use that year's inflation times whatever the project was submitted at.
If I could say one thing
Yeah.
about the port in place. Incidentally, I do have a video of the entire port in place, close-ups of the areas in question that you may think would be, significantly worn. And, visually, I didn't see any
I mean, has a certified professional actually audited or reviewed working place facilities?
So if I could, when Becky Goodwin was still here, we were having portions of the port in place were failing, and that's because the sand, the base that's underneath the port in place has shifted. And so if there continues to be traffic over an area that's not supported by the substrate underneath, it will create a hole. And we have had holes that our DPW crew has had to replace, spot replace, I would call it, spot repair. And that, but other than that, no, we have not had. It's been DPW leading that effort to maintain it and to make sure it's safe. But we have not had a professional come out and look at it.
Doesn't appear to be any more questions. Thank you, I appreciate it.
This will be on your next agenda for acceptance.
And it is at this time, we have a closed session under the Open Meetings Act. So I'm going to move, that we have a closed session, going to bring up later on, and wait for the return, on these vacant parcels. For those who don't have an agenda, that is for vacant parcels 10-230-000-005-00 and 010-230-000-006-01. So we will close now, regular session to closed session.
I will second that motion.
Second, please. No, take time.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Thank you.
sweater next time. I'm getting cold.
It is chilly in here today. And I'm never cold.
Must be Karen having hot flash.
Apparently, the kitchen's out of bottled water.
Oh, we're here.
Oh, look at you.
I took them in case we needed more.
Thank you.
Leave your dollar.
Oh, I will.
Inflation $1.25.
Before the meeting, has anybody had Pellegrini mineral water? Isn't that great? I put which lot, 11 in here tonight? Oh, my goodness.
That's the way to go.
Mine is extra better. Yeah.
Mr. Emerigi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Oh, I messed that up. Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we're on B, well, actually it's 13B, items for action, B. And this one relates to whether or not we're going to have a motion to purchase. Yes, Mr. Bliss, trustee Bliss.
I move to authorize the superintendent to enter into negotiations with the owner of parcels numbered 010-230-000-005-00 and 010-230-000-006-01 to purchase the properties.
Second. Give it to Steve.
Mr. Fewens Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Emerigi?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, our next would also be 13BC, which is the audio-visual equipment recommendation.
Thank you. So I did go through this with you all last meeting, so I won't get into the details again. I did reach out to the rep for this company that I had been working with. He did confirm that this proposal quote is still valid, so it is still the same amount. And then he did specify that the timeframe for implementation would be about 60 days after ordering the equipment for it to be delivered, and then about 2 to 3 weeks for actual installation. Yes.
Would there be any interruption in us being able to do what we're currently doing while we switch over?
I would do my very best to schedule around that to make sure that it happened during a week that we did not have a board meeting, or possibly during a week that we didn't have any committee meetings, because that does happen every once in a while. So I would do my best to do that. If I was not able to, I would find some solution in the meantime during the transition period.
Thank you. I have another question. We haven't heard from the other two folks that you would, okay. How's your faith in their interest in responding?
The one company that did come and looked at this room that I have not heard back from, it's been almost 3 months now.
Okay.
So I'm kind of past the time of having faith in them responding. The other one never even responded to my email, so.
Any other questions? Okay, having none, then I guess the motion would be to accept or reject. I need a motion. So is anyone going to make a motion?
Move to authorize the superintendent and deputy superintendent to move forward with the purchasing of the equipment as outlined in the conference technology proposal.
That cost us.
What's the cost? A cost not to exceed $66,972
We can pay for that later on, so we don't.
I'll second that motion. Leave it on the table.
Marie?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's what I need.
Uh,
Use it.
Some of you like to tease me that I like to push things into the budget planning year, which I do. But we've obviously heard enough from feedback from the public, and I missed a couple of planning commission meetings for work travel, and when I tried to watch them back, it was not very helpful. So with that, I'll support moving this quicker than the actual budget process.
What's that mean? I'm looking for,
He originally wanted to wait, I believe, until 2023.
oh, okay, so you're looking at
Do
2022.
it now.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying. He can speak for himself.
That's a fancy way, Marie, of saying I'm going to vote yes.
No, that's not what I was asking. I was asking whether or not, when you were talking about moving it faster, you're talking about taking out the money out of the budget 2022,
Two.
not 2023.
Well, it's not in the budget in '22.
I realize that, that's what I'm asking.
But it will
Right,
come
so I
out.
didn't say that because it's
So
not
where's
in
the money coming
'22.
from?
We would have to do a budget adjustment.
For 2022.
Because that's the fiscal year we're in.
Okay, we have a second.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
No?
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Fuensway?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 14, under new business. We have discussion and introduction. Before I go into that, I'm going to make a statement. And I'm going to read it just so you got it. This is for introduction discussion. I move to not engage in negotiations of the new contract with superintendent, as there's an ongoing criminal investigation that may adversely impact these negotiations. If necessary, to continue our oversight, we pursue a month-to-month contract as authorized by the existing contract, which would be dated, would start October 7th of 2022. So I'm looking to postpone our next one until October 3rd. To review the employment agreement. So, you're crossing, like there's confusion. Confusion being,
There's lots of confusion.
Okay.
Sorry,
Shoot.
Could you say a criminal investigation?
that's correct,
Into whom?
against me.
What should that have to do with her agreement with Karen?
It has everything to do with the fact that you have employment and personnel. So I'm just asking that you postpone till the next meeting, October 3rd.
Marie, I didn't understand that. Will you repeat that again? What does it have to do with Karen's contract?
I'm asking that I move not to engage in the negotiations.
No, I heard it. I'm asking you what this has to do with the contract. It's some context.
Because there may be some adversary impact
To the contract?
to the contract.
She's not under investigation, to be
No,
clear.
I am.
Oh, okay.
So that's all I'm asking.
So this wasn't on the agenda for action. We weren't going to talk about it until next
This is
month
discussion.
anyway.
Okay, this is under introduction and discussion, and I'm just asking that you postpone it till October 3rd.
I'm saying it already was because it's not for action.
It's not for action, so we're going to postpone even discussion of it. If you want to, that's fine.
Is there only one criminal investigation?
At this time, yes.
It's only me, I'm just curious.
I know you are. My term has said to discuss, so
Got it.
that's all I'm saying. So it's entirely up to you. All I'm saying is that we postpone this till October 3rd, hopefully by that time. That's okay, so there's no second.
Well, no, I'll second it. Pretty big amount of the drought.
Yeah, was for me too. That was, but anyway, that's where it's at. So if it's second, what's the discussion? So you take a vote?
Hey, that's a good question.
By all means.
Being the point that we never have had a review in accordance with the superintendent's contract is, and we're not actually going to put this back on the agenda until October, am I right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Would it be possible that we, this board could take and accomplish that review between now, and it would be acceptable to you, Karen, to accomplish that review and have a panel, three-person panel to review you before the, comes back to the board in October?
That would be fantastic.
Is that acceptable to the board?
So functionally, we do what Marie is asking, but for a different reason.
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure what that.
We'd have to go to a month unless we can get it turned around in 2 weeks.
Well, the review,
Well-
you could, I would assume being today is the 19th of September, you ought to be able to take the next 10 days to be able to, before October 7th, you ought to be able to do a review.
All right, can I just plug in with that?
That hasn't been done, and I was gonna bring that to your attention tonight anyhow, before I do anything about what you're talking about doing. But I think that should have been done myself personally, but it's not right, it's not fair to the superintendent, it's not fair to the community that the review hasn't been done. And I think it ought to be done.
It's just not a review. There hasn't been.
Yeah, it is. Her
No.
contract asks for a review, that's what her contract asks for, and that, this is.
On
even-
the,
this
on
is in-
2020,
this is in-
2021, and 2022 of April.
That's correct,
That's correct. It hasn't been done.
that's correct.
And if we had this three-person panel, and you were on it, but it dissolved the 21st.
I withdrew for other reasons, so didn't have time.
Oh, I didn't know you withdrew. I knew Jason withdrew, but I didn't know, so there was one person.
We had one person who's not here now,
And it
and
didn't
it's
take
never,
place.
it's never taken place,
Okay.
and you need to, I think that needs to be accomplished, no matter what you do here, to at least do one review. It'd be pretty hard to do consensus to do two reviews, but I think we could do one review, and I think that would be adequate. It'd be our due diligence we should be doing.
So you're asking that it be continued, or an additional review be taken?
I didn't say
Like it
anything
was
about
the
additional- I
21st.
didn't say anything about additional review, I said we need to do a review.
Yes,
A
that was,
review, one
that,
review.
that was also set in the contract, which is very confusing because there are two places in the contract that kind of fight each other on that. But you're asking for a review prior to, because you're right, you'd have to go month to month, after October 7th. So what you're looking at, Treasurer Officer, is to be able to say, you're gonna have a review between now and October 2nd, which is when we meet, or 3rd. I think we meet 3rd, that's a Monday. Is that correct? Am I understanding it? Even though you already were supposed to have done that, actually
Yeah,
4 times.
Didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen 4 times, it didn't
Can't
happen.
control that.
Okay, all right, who originally did, that's pretty good, you can't control it. Who then was responsible for the contract?
Township board is. That's what we're trying to do right here, right now.
Yes, you are. Yes.
Uh,
Yes, trustee.
I employ in my day job a lot of folks. I do a lot of reviews. I'm happy to come up with a tool to move this forward if that's helpful and supported by the board. The guidance I would look for is, do you all want to weigh in on the tool? Because that back and forth may take us 2 weeks alone, pushing the review back. If you all don't want to weigh in on the tool, and we could use one that mixes, her previous review tool plus things that I use in my day job, we could move it faster. I'm just offering as a way to move it forward, not as a way to take over the process. I would want all of us to be able
So we're
to use
asking
it.
to postpone it, which is what I originally said till.
No, I'm asking, I hear what you're saying, Marie, but what I'm asking is that something you all want me to do to help move this forward? I'm offering that. Feel free to say no. I don't need extra work, but I want to help us move forward.
No, I understand, I don't need extra work either. But that's what I'm saying is, the motion on the floor right now, or on the table, is that it be postponed. And you're offering a tool to be able to move that process. So I think we're saying the same thing. We're gonna postpone it, but your advice for another tool within the next 2 weeks. Is that what you're saying? Because I received no report whatsoever on any of the activities that take place. So does that mean that your tool would include the whole board?
That is what I would advocate. I think we as a board need to review, Karen, and I would
We as a
want
board,
all of us to be able to give feedback. Whether I develop it or someone else did, that's what I would advocate for.
No, I get it. As long as we includes me.
Yeah, you're part of the board.
I know I am. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I understand that. I understand it,
okay.
but you're not willing to share the tool unless we say it's okay.
No, I'm not authorized by you all to do any of this, so I will do whatever you want me to do. I'll also shut up and move on, but I'm offering to help move it forward. If that's what it's gonna take is the introduction of a tool, I'm happy to create that.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
May
I
I
also,
weigh in here?
oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So by board action, myself, Treasurer Wiswasser, and Trustee Benzie were asked to oversee this. I stepped off because of other obligations
Yes.
at work. I have newfound time, and I'm wondering if it would be okay if, with the board, if I step back onto that process and can work with Trustee Willis, Treasurer Wiswasser, to take a look at the tools that he has that I should previously shared, and then to provide a proposal to the board for a process and a tool.
Question for you. If you step down, which apparently you did, I didn't realize that, if you did, that left one person, to do the review because you were too busy. Is that, so you're willing to make the time?
I believe, my personal opinion is an elected officer of the township, which is three of us, which is I'm one, you're one,
That's correct.
and Kurt is one. My idea would have been at the time I said something and talked to, I believe, Trustee Benzie, and I might have said it to Jason, that I felt that maybe there should be at least one, maybe two elected officers of the township that should be involved in. I think there should be one elected officer. I've had a lot of things in my life in the last 9 months, and things I'm still dealing with as far as personal deaths in the family and business deals and everything else. I'm trying to finish up and wrap up and clean up and keep everybody where they need to be, their homes, and so I've had to deal with that. I'm not making excuses, but I'm frankly honest with you, this is a big job, and you keep pretty busy doing this. And you people know that. I work hard at it. But I think the clerk would make an excellent person to put on that committee with the two trustees. I wouldn't have a problem at all with you being on it. I think that you would make an excellent person to be on it. However, you've indicated that you have a criminal investigation
That's
into
correct,
you,
and
and
that's
probably
why-
that wouldn't make a very good committee for that. But I do believe that the clerk would make an excellent person if she's interested, because she's here every day, and she's aware of what goes on a daily basis. Not saying the rest of you are not aware of what goes on a daily basis, but Brenda and I, for a better word, we pick up the pieces, nothing personal, we got to put it all together, okay, to make this place work. And that's what our jobs are. And that's the most important thing for me. I have to make sure I get the taxes, the database, or I'm getting the database building time here. I'm working on that right now. I'm also involved in the uniform chart of accounts. I'm involved in the day-to-day business of the township. I'm involved in about everything I need to be involved in. I don't have time to focus and give this as much attention as I'd like to. Karen has just as many issues as what I do. Brenda has more issues than what I do with the election, but this is part of our job. We've got to do this. I would really like to see Brenda.
And I would object to that. The reason
do this.
and I have reason for objecting to, not because Brenda's not capable of doing it, because she would be. However, according to what our organization for our township is supposed to be, that's a better way of putting it. It was trustee Bliss who ended up, Friedman Bliss, sorry about that, who originally changed the contract from my oversight to the clerk's oversight.
Well, I didn't, we did.
No, well, you introduced it,
Sure.
of course that happened. And my understanding was that the superintendent didn't know anything about it. It just happened, that there wasn't any discussion for that. So in light of that, I would object to the clerk being, because I think that would be a conflict of interest when it would come to, and not because she's not capable, that isn't it.
I have no problem.
Oh, of course
I'm really
not.
busy with elections. My 31-year-old daughter passed away last
Yep.
fall. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law just passed away.
So we're right back at, I guess, what we're doing is postponing this until.
Let me ask you one, to keep this alive, you have two trustees who want to do this, and you indicated you don't want to be involved in it because of the situation.
I don't think you should.
You indicated you wasn't happy with the situation with yourself and clerk. My shoulders are broad and wide and strong. I guess, would you like me to take this on?
Oh, your shoulders aren't broad enough, they're not wide enough. And
I'm not afraid,
strong
I'm
enough.
not afraid of anything or
No.
anybody, and I guess that's my point, and that's probably what gets me in most trouble around here. But I guess I can do that, and I can work with the two trustees. If you're happy with me, I'm pretty, you and I are not afraid to tell each other what we think.
No, we are not. That's
If you're
exactly right.
happy with that, that's fine, because I have
I
no
would be
problem.
happier with that, but again, I'm gonna go back to
The only-
my original motion, which I would like to see it.
The only thing I'll say is the person that may not like it is because I share the same relationship with the superintendent. And her and I always seem to find our way
Yep.
back to center. But I tell people what I think and the things ought to be done. And
Yeah.
if I don't agree, I don't agree. If I do agree, I do agree. And I agree to disagree. That's basically how I do my job.
No, I appreciate that, but all I'm saying is my motion again goes back to the new contract. To discuss it, we need to postpone it.
So you want to postpone the voting on her contract
I wanna
until
postpone
October
the-
2nd?
No, I want to postpone the discussion, because that's what it is, it's the introduction and discussion, and all I'm saying is, introduction and discussion, employment agreement. So all we were gonna do is discuss it, and all I'm saying is, I think that discussion needs to take place in a couple weeks.
I mean, I sort of feel like we
And-
just had the discussion, so I'm not sure what we would be postponing at this point.
Well, we're gonna postpone it, that's on the table, you have to vote up or down. My point being that there's been 4 times that there's supposed to be a personnel performance evaluation, and it hasn't taken place. I'm not sure, and I really appreciate the fact that trustee Almergy stepped up to do it again, but it was 2021 when that committee dissolved, and it never happened. 4 times, that makes the 4th time that, actually, I think it's the 3rd time, because it was 2021 and 22.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but, you know, I think what Steve's saying is we can't go back in time, so we
No,
got
can't go back
to
in
review
time.
her, you
Going
know.
forward, because we're having this investigation, this is the time that this needs to be postponed.
I had one in 2020, Jack Phillips conducted it.
Never saw it.
I've seen it.
Good for you, okay.
The board that was here at the time voted on it, so.
And that would have been in April of 20. So where is it? I've never,
I'll share it with you.
okay, nope, that would be good. So there's 2, so that makes it 3, not 4. So,
My question was 4. I think it was supposed to go on 21, 21.
it was 1 in 20, it's supposed to be 1 in 20, 21,
We're already
22.
in 22.
Yes, in April.
There's 2.
It was April of 2022, it didn't take place.
No, I think it was more like September.
Yeah.
Well, it says April.
Well, I'm sorry,
In the
Jack
contract.
conducted it closer to, in the fall.
I can't help it. I never saw it, so
She can't help it either, though, is what she's saying.
it's in the contract.
Sure, she doesn't run the contract, Jack did, so Jack made a choice to postpone it.
No, I
Yeah.
was here November 20.
I know,
So
we're talking about October and September of 20.
that's fine.
Okay.
You know, if that's
It just
what-
felt like you were pushing back on what she was saying.
No, all I'm saying is if that's fine, that still leaves 3 instead of 4 times. So all I'm asking, so you gotta vote it up or vote it down. And I was just saying,
So you're advocating to postpone the discussion we just had? I just want to be clear.
You're very clear.
Is this something your attorney advised? Is that where this is coming from?
This is coming from the fact that there's an investigation and it shouldn't be discussed
From your attorney?
from anybody.
That feels cagey. So I'm going to say that's coming from your attorney. Well, I think we just had the discussion, so I'm going to vote no.
It's time for vote.
Actually, I would withdraw my second. I don't think it's necessary.
That's okay. Do you know what we're voting on?
We're not voting. He
He withdrew
withdrew
his
his
second.
second.
Oh, you withdrew the second. And it dies.
You have to move at this point.
It's not moved, it just dies. We've decided that it's not going to take place. I've started with that, people. Okay. All right, so on our agenda, it has employment agreement for introduction and discussion to township supervisor or superintendent, terminated October 7th of 2020.
It's not terminated.
Current agreement terminates on October 7th of 2022.
Terminate, not terminate.
2020.
Terminated is a, terminates is a problem.
2022.
You're good on grammar.
Well, not really, but okay.
Okay. So we're gonna have the introduction and discussion, so shoot.
I don't have any more questions.
Just to recap, you all are going to take on the, great.
Okay.
Happy to provide any support or help you need. Also happy you're going to take it on.
All right, does everybody have their copy? Al, do you have anything? A trustee Rose, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Good. Because I do. Do you have anything
Or
for discussing the abstract?
not right this second. I thought we weren't going to go forward. Are we going to go forward without a review?
No, we're gonna have a review.
No, you're not. That's not what, unless you, did we vote on that?
Been voted on anything yet?
No, we haven't, so
The board has already authorized a subcommittee to do the review. The
when did they
subcommittee
authorize?
has
Okay.
reconverged to do the review.
Who voted on reconverging to have the review?
Well, we never voted to dissolve the subcommittee, so the subcommittee's.
Which was the 21st in 2021. So you're gonna, I do.
End dates.
It was-
to look at that.
Okay. So what you're saying is, what?
What I'm saying is that the superintendent is owed a review. We've acknowledged that we've not reviewed her in the past 3 years. So in service of having an informed discussion about the agreement or the employment
Okay.
agreements, we will move forward in an expedited fashion to conduct a review, a fair and balanced review.
So we're not looking to postpone this discussion? Or we are looking to postpone it?
No, we
This
just
is
voted no
not-
on that.
You didn't vote on any of
We
it?
didn't vote.
We,
You didn't vote
We
on any
didn't
of
do
it?
a second.
oh, right. Sorry.
Okay, so my amendment's still on the floor. It died, okay?
Mhm.
So you removed the second, because it wasn't necessary. So now we're still at the point of being able to vote on whether or not we're gonna move forward or whether we're gonna postpone.
I think this
It's-
is just introduction
Yeah.
and discussion, not.
It is.
We're not voting on anything tonight.
It is an introduction, so there isn't anything to vote on. Okay,
But did you have comments you wanted to give to the contract?
we're not voting on anything, right?
No.
Yes, I do have
Okay.
comments.
But this is the time for discussion, so
Should be,
go ahead.
it should, that's what I asked.
Maria, I don't know what you're looking for, the red carpet or what, but you got the floor. Take it away.
I'm looking for the red carpet.
Marie,
So,
just,
yes.
can I offer a friendly bit of advice? If there is a criminal investigation, and my recommendation is to withhold your comments pending the outcome of that.
I would certainly agree with that. That's why I wanted to postpone it. That's exactly right.
So do you
So-
feel, and maybe I'm out of turn here, but I'm trying to understand this, do you feel you can't make a comment about this in the discussion on the contract.
I asked, my amendment was to postpone, and obviously didn't get a second, so that died, so we're not going, or if we are going to, we're not going to address the idea of postponing the contract. Now, the discussion is going around whether I should or should not be focused for me. And from my standpoint, with what I've learned and what I've been doing, yes, I do feel that I should not be.
So I have a better understanding, thank you for answering the question. So I will, if your motion still stands, I will second it.
But you pulled yourself.
So
Okay, how
my,
many times are you gonna do this?
but let me clarify. So, because this is an item for introduction and discussion,
Okay.
we can discuss it or not discuss it. So we've had things introduced, minimal discussion. My understanding was that in the discussion related to that second, we discussed some of the things that were needed for moving forward with the contract. So I was under the assumption that we had had a discussion on it. But now what I misunderstood that what you were asking for is a postponement of the discussion because you are unable to
It
lend
may
comments.
adversely affect, and that's the term that I use, adversely affect these negotiations. So, yes, that's what I'm asking, is that it be postponed because of that.
So I will second that motion.
I hope you have all that.
This is just for discussion, this isn't for action.
Correct. I think
So why do we have a motion and a second?
Because, well.
she's asking to postpone it.
I'm asking to postpone it.
My understanding is that she has, at least looking at the marked up copy in front of her, she has many things to contribute to the
Yeah.
conversation, the discussion, but has been advised to not voice those pending the outcome of this investigation.
So if, what you're saying is because it's an introduction and
Yes.
discussion, you don't need to have a vote.
That's what you've always said in the past.
I haven't always said it.
Yes, you have.
You want to stand up and yell a little louder so they can hear?
I want to make sure that mic catches it.
Good, because it did, without a problem. So if that's what you want to do, if you're saying with the introduction and discussion, you don't need a vote, I'm going to say, that's fine, we don't need to vote it. So we're done. So the next one has to do,
Are you pulling your motion?
no, for me, that's not, but if that's what this board is.
Marie, you made a motion. Do you want us to vote on it?
Yes, I do. I'd love to
Okay,
have you
let's
vote
just
on
do
it.
that then, please.
Thank you. I mean, that's all that I'm asking, whether it's an introduction, discussion, and like trustee Rosecrans wanted to say, or did say, loud and clear, that because we have not done that before, have not asked for a vote during an introduction and discussion, we just left it at that. All I'm saying is, for me, that's a postponement, and that's what I asked for. So if you agree to the postponement, we don't need.
I don't think the postponement is on the table. I regret that you are unable, because of attorney recommendation, not to participate in the discussion. I don't think we should stop the business of the township because of that.
And I do. because
No, I get it. I think we should vote. You're right.
That's all I'm,
Let's do it.
so let's do it. So we'll just.
Could I make a comment?
Oh,
Would somebody
Yes.
please filibuster here for a minute while I continue reading this thing so I can determine whether or not in her contract, if we're gonna get ourselves any kind of problem with not
That's what
dispute
we're
resolution
doing.
here of the thing I'm reading.
Okay.
Give me 5 minutes to read this
To
thing.
read
You can talk for 5 minutes.
No.
Talk about like they do in the, not a court you talk about, let me read for a minute.
Okay, you're on page. If you will. So dispute resolution is on page 4.
That's correct.
Okay.
I can't see it, I think that,
Okay, sorry.
talk with somebody else.
See my motion? Oh, you need to see the motion. I don't have a problem with it.
you guys, are they going to go ahead with their?
Here's what we had, can I speak now? Here's a, she has 182 days, whatever, you pursue arbitration, and whatever you decide you want to do, if you so choose to do this. However, I think we have some time left in our contract with you to move forward. I don't want to be the attorney here, I'm just trying to read the paperwork. Because two wrongs don't make a right.
That's correct.
And that's what you need to look at. If the superintendent it'd be nice if we could ask the superintendent if she is, agreement that they can wait for a few.
I would be pleased to have a review, and I would be pleased to have discussion and action at the next meeting.
Did you understand what I was reading?
I do.
Does everybody else understand this? You read it, obviously.
No. You understand it, Al?
Yes, I read it.
You gotta turn your mic on.
Other than, I'm asking, I put the motion on the floor, postpone,
Was it seconded and you seconded it?
to second it. Well, Troy seconded, so I'm assuming you didn't say.
You seconded it?
Yes, you did.
Motion seconded, call the roll.
Ms. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Cumas Bliss?
No.
Mr. Rosecrans?
No.
Ms. Butler Challenger? No.
Under.
I'm good. This breaks down. We do it again?
No, I know it fails.
It fails.
Yeah.
Okay. It's, so now you're going to do employment agreement.
So I take it, Karen, you are seeking continued employment with us?
I would desire that.
Okay. No one had asked you that yet, so I thought that would be a good place to start. To be fair. If we were to go into a, if we can't pull off the review in the next, 19 days, would you be open to going to a month-to-month?
It's not preferable, but yes.
Okay. Okay. I have faith in you, Jason.
So did we vote on review?
No.
With the same team that was originally. Trustee Benzie's on vacation.
So we're picking up where we left off, 2021 December, correct? That's what it is. So that means that trustee Almarigi,
Treasurer was sponsor.
I understand that, instead of trustee Dempsey, and you are the original,
Yes.
these three. So now who's on this board this time?
Explain to the town, I don't understand it.
Well, the board before, that review board dissolved,
The committee,
the committee dissolved, now you want to phrase it?
never dissolved, it's still in place, based on where you made that.
No, it didn't.
Yes.
It dissolved
Oh.
in December of 2021. So what you're doing is you're going to extend it. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to know who's going to be on it.
Same people was on it before?
That he's gone. So if you're gone, you get, okay, that's, okay.
Is that the way you see that, right?
Yeah. We never dissolved the committee, so you're the three that were.
Yes, you did. You dissolved. you
Is there a
dissolved
board
it
action you can point to,
by-
Marie?
Never took any action, we
You
never
dissolved
voted on
it by saying it was dissolved December of 2021.
Okay, 6 people disagree with you, Marie, so that's the way we're gonna move it through. You can make a motion to change it if you'd like.
Nope.
Otherwise, I think
However you
we
wanna do
should
it.
move
Okay,
forward.
so it'll be Jason and Treasurer Wiswasser, right? And Joe Benson. So that's who was the original before it dissolved, which it did, but that's okay. Okay. So, should we go on now? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Then on new business 14, we're going to take up B, which is Superintendent Paxton's letter concerning James Pleasant Park Superintendent.
Thank you. A letter is received and directed to you, and I believe you requested it when you were at the meeting of the Building and Grounds Committee of the school board meeting. In receiving this, I wanted the board to be aware that the school had the lease examined by their attorneys and believes, number one, insurance on the potential building during and after the construction would be the township's responsibility. The township would be responsible for the upkeep and utilities of a completed structure. And that, number three, what happens to the structure at the termination of the lease in 2089 would be that the structure would become district property once the lease expired unless a new lease was signed. So I included the letter that was received as well as the lease agreement that we have with Bath Community Schools for James Cousins Memorial Park. Wanted you to be aware so that you can have discussion.
What was the impetus for this letter? Like, why were they taking up this issue? I don't
I
know.
haven't seen this letter, so I don't know what you're,
Oh, I thought she said you requested it.
oh, what I did.
Oh,
at
It's
that
been in
meeting.
your mailbox since the 12th.
And that's another issue that we'll be dealing with. I sent a question or,
Right, I might be able to answer that. I believe it was, that school museums, work on getting architectural drawings of a building, a museum building on the property.
and I will finish it by saying I was there at the meeting, and at the meeting it was stated,
I'm sorry, Maria, I just asked a question and you acted like you didn't know any of the information, so I'm happy you do, and I'm happy to
No,
listen
this
to
I have
it.
not seen. This I have not seen. But what I did see was when I was at the meeting for the Board of Education, it was mentioned with the Grounds and Building Committee. Butler? No, that's not his name. It's his name, Board of Education.
The committee, I gotcha.
Anyway, it was their committee. And it was decided that the township would be responsible. I raised that question about some kind of letter, some kind of information passed through to let us know what was going on. And the superintendent, he did send me an email. He said, I forgot what it was. remind me. So I reminded him of what was said. This apparently was his response. Not, like I said, I didn't see this. Part of
It's in your mailbox
yeah, my mailbox. That's another issue, but
since September 12th.
that was when it was in there. The fact I had not seen it, no one mentioned to me that that was there, or the fact I don't check my mailbox, that's another issue. So there's like two issues, yeah. There's two issues going on.
Could I come back to the original question?
The original question was,
So it sounded
How
like Jason had the answer, the impetus to the board asking these issues. You were sort of giving me the story of the letter. I was looking for the impetus of the issue.
the impetus of that issue was because their board was saying that we, as a board, had agreed that this is what we would do. I asked at that time for the superintendent for a letter.
Okay. Could I ask Jason a question? Could you tell me what you know about this?
So, Bath Community School Museum has been looking at how to preserve the cupola.
Right.
We authorized $20,000 to develop some plans. They've been moving forward with that work and have gotten to the point where they have pitched, I think, some ideas to the school board, and so there's much more action. I'm only speculating here, but my guess is that the school board may have, or the grounds committee may have wondered, what are we on the hook for? And then I'll verify that by reviewing the lease agreement.
Marie, when you were there, did this come off as, like the board wasn't interested in having a building on this property? Or was this just merely
No.
legalese of the lease?
This was a statement that was made that the township would be responsible for whatever they had determined, and I asked for a letter so that we understood.
Yeah. I'm trying to get into like the tone of what their intent was.
There was no tone with it.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
It was delivered very nicely, there was no tone.
Okay.
one way or another. Tone doesn't give you a yes or no.
Okay, you've answered the question, thank you, that's helpful.
Can I make a statement about this? I'm on the museum committee, and we spoke about this very instance.
Oh, I'm sure you
About
did.
maintenance of
Yeah.
this proposed building. And the guy that is on the
What? Not-
township board, the school board maintenance, I think.
Beecher.
Anyway, he stated that the board mentioned to him that they would be responsible for, in his words, changing of the light bulbs and turning the lights on and off and mowing grass. So needs to be some clarification because it was stated to us that the township didn't want to be responsible for the building's maintenance and upkeep, and the school board at that time didn't know who was, but I think another letter needs to be drawn up because nobody seems to want to take responsibility.
I'm sorry. Of course you can.
I'm on the board.
You're on the board, so am I. Yes, you can. Just to acknowledge it.
There's several things that I commend you, Superintendent Noel Brent, for producing this ancient document we have here.
Yeah.
You'll find here, it's not anything to laugh about, but you'll find here that out of the 4 signers on this document, 2 of them from the school system and 2 of them from the township, there's only one person still alive today that signed this document, and it was a 99-year document. So with that being said, and the notaries, out of the notaries that notarized it, to my knowledge, I know that for a fact, there's only one notary that's alive. If you're going to take and continue and do this and enter into a contract with the building and have a building on that site, like what they were talking about was what this prompted this, because I too was at that meeting. You might want to think about maybe shoring up our lease and looking at our 99-year lease and doing something with that, being that everybody has changed since it was drawn up back in 19 6 years before I was first on this board. So, not that I'm trying to date myself, but that is the case. So I think that's what you wanted this for, if I'm not mistaken, to see what the legitimacy of it was.
That was my only question, I think it's something that so that maybe as a board would understand
And it
where they're coming
it
from.
speaks in here who's gonna do the maintenance, and who's gonna take care of the land. It does not speak to the fact that you're gonna build a building. And that would probably have to change for that. But it does speak to the term of the lease, it speaks to the condition, maintenance, and alteration of the premises, which would include the alteration, I would think would might include building or maybe not. And it speaks to everything else, it's, the founding fathers of this document found necessary to do this. And like I said, there is still one lady that lives on Angle Road that was signed this paper, it's still alive today. If that helps you, if that helps you.
Yes, it is. I think it is. Something we should look at. Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Steve, in your reading of this, do you think the lease allows us to contract with, say, the museum committee to provide insurance, to provide upkeep and utilities, to manage the structure?
I think at least definitely gives us a say in whether we will or we won't.
Yeah.
Because we're changing the terms of the lease and adding a building to it. That's my knowledge of it. But I think it makes only sense because all parties are willing. I think the school is willing, I think the township is willing. And the museum committee is willing to take and do something to work with this site. This site means a lot to the charter township of that. So I think that all parties are willing, so I think it's a good place to start. You already have an agreement that's here. There was good faith and credit, but you probably ought to think about maybe coming up with new ones, new names, new signatures, new dates. You may want to look at how many years you want. You might want to go for another 99 years. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. The board will have to say that. The whole board will, both boards. I'm sure of that.
My concern is just if the museum committee sees that the district is saying it's not us, we've sort of said in public at these meetings, we don't think it's us, that it may send the message that they're unable to move forward. And maybe,
Say it's not us? I mean, the lease-
we didn't vote on it, but most of the board commented that we would not want to take on that liability that night,
Of the building itself.
of all of it.
I think it's a big unknown. I think it is.
Yeah.
I know that myself, it was unknown for me to be able to know what it was gonna cost to do all this. Because
Yeah.
it's not like there's a committee out there to take it. There has never been an actuarial, there's a better way of stating it. It's never been an actuarial to take it, to determine the cost, an engineering study or anything else, what's gonna cost to build a building, let alone maintain a building, who's gonna be responsible for it.
But I think that's what Jason was saying was the impetus to this conversation, was the authorization to spend some money on architectural drawings, right?
Yes. So
Which would help them get an idea of cost.
we allocated $20,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if
We have.
We haven't expended any of the money.
I have a different recollection about the discussion. My recollection was that we were all very excited about the potential of having a nice set of facilities at Cousins Park to honor what has happened there and to honor its importance to our community. Quibbling over who maintains the grass, I think, is a waste of time. It's clear from our lease that we are required to maintain the property, sidewalks, maintenance of their lawn, et cetera. Within it, we're authorized to build a gazebo, but if there's additional facilities that we want to develop, that has to be approved by both boards or their board. In the discussion by the Bethany School Museum, there was some interest or discussion about perhaps them forming a Friends of group or some other group. I don't know where that discussion has gone or if that has, but my assumption is that might be a player. And going to Treasurer Wiswasser's comment, perhaps I think it does make sense if this does move forward to go into I would not want this to get derailed because there's confusion about maintenance, who's gonna change light bulbs versus pay rent versus utilities. This is something that's important for our community, and rather than identifying the barriers and living within the barriers, we should identify the barriers and move beyond them.
Any other discussion? Okay, apparently we have introduction.
Well, are we moving any of that, are we tasking the superintendent with any of that? None of this is gonna happen unless we,
It says introduction and discussion.
I know, I'm asking the board, is that our intent, is to ask Karen to do any of those things we just said? Otherwise, it will sit and delay the museum work.
Well, so I see nothing to act on. Supervisor Howell made a request of Superintendent Hartzig of the school. Superintendent Hartzig complied and provided their interpretation of the lease. But there's nothing for us to do other than say thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Sure, but the two of you just said you thought we should renegotiate the lease. So if that's something we want the superintendent to do, we do have to tell her to do that.
I think it's premature to do that until there's more action by the school museum committee.
You already appropriated money to do what they asked for the architectural drawings to find out whether you could even afford it or whether they could go the next step or whatever they needed to do. So I guess you probably should follow through with what you already approved this board. Well, I don't know who voted for it, or who voted for it or not, but you've approved it. You've also went out and got their letter. We need to confirm with these people that you have the money appropriated, and we have the money we've taken out of funds to fund the architectural drawing.
I'm not with them.
And have that process done. At the time, when they're done there, I think step B would be, when they say, okay, we're gonna be able to maybe do something here and move forward, we're gonna do this. At that point in time, I think that the township and the school, I don't know how the museum committee fits into this, I'm not into that piece of it. But they need to sit down and maybe like a reformatting a new lease that's beneficial and protective of what they're gonna do with the property and everybody's interest in it.
So we'd like the museum committee to continue to move forward.
That's what I get.
I think it's helpful to be clear and decisive to people to understand.
Already voted to do that.
I know, but I think if you read this, the implication is that this could be derailed. And so I think it's helpful for us just to verbally acknowledge we're not necessarily pushing off this liability.
We provided them with the funds that they asked for to do this, we appropriated them, and that can be done. That's correct. And at that point in time, after you get to the next step, before you take and enter, and I think your attorney's going to tell you that, before you enter into an agreement with these people to place a building, I think at that point in time, maintenance, I agree with Jason 100%. I think it should be over. I don't think it matters. So who's going to take care of the maintenance of that? I think it's all part of public tax dollars. But it's what you need to take and firm up this lease. I don't think it would hurt at all to have a new lease with new people's signatures on there that maybe are current people, because it's a current decision of all the boards, and I think that's good business.
I did meet with Chris Hagerman and his wife as they were reviewing proposals from architects, and they have not yet come back. I believe they were exploring those plans with the committee, and we'll be back when their decision is made.
They need a decision.
We had a death on the committee, Rodina Church
Yes.
just passed away. And so that kind of set us back on making any decisions.
Because I thought they made a decision, but we'll know, we have a meeting coming up, so
Okay.
that can be asked. Now, if they have determined an architect for that, is that something you want to know?
We're not going to hire them there.
I know, but I'm just saying. You want to know they've already done that? The decision
Oh,
is
that's
done.
fine.
Okay, that meeting's coming up this week. Okay. All right, any other discussion? I don't see any, so we'll do 14, new business, C, the ordinance, says a zoning ordinance amendment. All this time, he's waiting for signature.
All right, this is an ordinance to amend section 15.26. This is the ordinance that deals with wind energy production. So there's this term WEX, which stands for Wind Energy Convergent Systems. This is an amendment specifically around small WEX, so these would be ones that apply to like more residential type properties. The line of text that was added is B, and I know in your packet it looks like there's a noticing copy, and then there's a second copy of the ordinance. Look at that second copy, B, you'll see the language that was voted on by the Planning Commission to introduce the amendment that would set a minimum lot standard. So the minimum lot size for a small WEX shall be 1 acre. So that's kind of the change that's on the table here. This was done in an effort to reduce conflict between land uses. And also and I'm by no means a wind energy production engineer, but there is also a drive to make sure if we are doing these renewable energies in the township, they are in fact producing clean energy at efficient rates. And sometimes with wind energy production and tight settings where a dense amount of homes are located, their production potential drops off vastly.
So the only change between the old ordinance and the new one is from 5 acres to 1 acre?
The old ordinance, so that notice one, the first one in your packet, 5 acres was what the original text amendment was applied for, and the Planning Commission took it down to 1 acre. But prior to this, there was no minimum lot size at all.
So there was intended to be a red line version and that didn't occur somewhere. I think it's a 4 line. The first copy says 5 acres and the second copy says 1 acre under B.
Can I ask a question, Miles?
Yeah.
Is that standard in the industry?
Yeah, there were a number of municipalities that had this minimum lot standard. We saw 1 acre, we saw 2 acres, the Planning Commission opted. There was a map produced to help them determine their decision, but given Bath Township's configuration of parcels, 1 acre was determined to be suitable.
Is there any consideration at all as far as the wind structures size, and having room to fall or anything like that?
Yep. So prior to this, the main factor that would have determined the size of lot would be fall distance. So 1.25 times the height of the size of the WEX. And that has remained in place as well, because obviously we don't things falling on other things.
So what are the different types of wind energy systems? So we all know the large, super large turbines, but I mean, I've seen these things where they can sit on, this table right here.
I went down the rabbit hole on this one, so I can tell you all about it. So there are wind spires are what you typically see in residential properties, and there's 2 types of wind spires, concealed and unconcealed. So sometimes, and then within those 2 categories, there's 2 possibilities for them, either ground mounted or structure mounted. So typically, the configuration I've seen most common in residential areas is a concealed wind spire that's structure mounted.
Does that fall under the WEX?
This does, yeah. And that's kind of why they go with the WEX terminology, I'm assuming, when this was written, versus calling something just a wind turbine, because that would encompass all the wind energy potential out there.
I guess I'm trying to understand, I mean, for these concealed structure mounted wind spires,
Mhm.
what's the advantage of limiting that to 1 acre or more?
So you
size
still,
parcels?
you would get, there's a scientific term for this, and apologies for not knowing it, but basically, in layman's terms, whenever you have a lot of homes around each other and it's concealed, you get, it's commonly called as like muddied winds, so the energy potential isn't very high. So,
But with that said, I mean,
so I guess if we're trying to incentivize people to have renewable energy, we'd like in 1 acre or smaller, surrounded by dense properties, we'd like to create an incentive structure to push them towards solar versus a concealed wax. If the objective is to get clean renewable energy.
so the ordinance here is to enforce the efficiency of,
It creates incentives for efficiency, and it also reduces conflict, because some people just, and you know, I'm not trying to make this case, but some people would just say, it's not aesthetically pleasing to me, I don't want that at my neighbor's house, it's god awful, I don't want to see it. So, as we talked about in the past, at a fundamental level, the purpose of zoning is to reduce conflict of land uses. So the case was made that we have a conflict here, and this was the remedy.
Could you explain, Miles, when you have 1 acre or less, where that's located?
Yeah. So
So that's,
largely, most of the township won't be affected, but we did produce these maps, which I only print out a couple, but,
I wouldn't mind blaming me. That's okay.
so
This is what I,
the yellow parcels are,
This
1 acre or less, and then kind of the purple parcels are 2 acres or less. So you,
that's, I guess, what I was getting at.
in terms of land coverage, the vast majority of the township won't be affected by this ordinance.
So majority of this is a medium density part of the township, is that correct?
Yeah, medium, and then downtown's covered pretty significantly as well, which is in high-density development. But also, you run into that muddy wind problem there as well, because it's just so dense.
I guess, I mean, my concern is, I mean, is it really our business to, you know, dictate?
Energy efficiency,
Well, I mean, if someone's gonna invest a significant amount of money into solar or wind, I mean, my guess is that they might be interested in both. They may want wind because solar may not be as effective at night or during storms.
For sure.
Whereas wind can be.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I get having ordinances in place where there's a conflict of interest, there's, you know, unsightliness, but my understanding is that some of these things are so, well, concealed, or sometimes it's hard to recognize what the
Yeah.
thing is.
I think that's true, but largely a wax needs to sit high in the air. So regardless of how concealed it's gonna be quite higher than maybe a chimney or something like that. So you're gonna know it's there.
45 feet.
Yeah. You need it to be
Depending
at
on the
minimum.
elevation and the light, I mean, it's just,
At minimum,
doesn't-
it's gotta be 20 feet off the ground.
but does it?
No, it does, by our ordinance, prior to this, and industry standard that's common.
So we mandate how high it has to be, independent of the topography of the property?
20 feet of average grade, yeah.
Okay. And so prior to this, there was no acreage limitation?
No, there was not. And honestly, even with the fall distance, usually 1 acre configuration would usually be precluded, but, sometimes people will have their house right in the corner, and so then you could have something like this.
Now, where did this come up? Was there complaints that drove this? someone wanted to install or did install, and then there was a conflict?
So that's where
Somebody-
the 5 came from, the first document.
Yeah. And so obviously the planning commission had some of the same concerns you're having, and that's why it got reduced down to 1 acre. But yeah, there was an application, just for context, I guess, that came in. That application was pulled because wind energy has a lot more conditions to it. So we kind of were going down that path, and the person that was the contractor for the interested party was unable to fill the standards of the WEX ordinance. You need things like another rabbit hole of shadow flipper studies.
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion is that we should remove more barriers than adding barriers to renewable energy utilization. I think that the economics of them are pretty self-correcting. I can't speak for complaints about when, someone has a neighbor that doesn't want to see something in the air. It definitely appreciates the moving from 1 acre or 5 acres to 1 acre. I think, again, that's in the right direction.
Any other questions? Glenn? Think we're good?
Thank you, everyone.
All right, that was an introduction discussion. Now we have items for action. And what we're looking at is the 2022 tax rate request, the L 429.
Thank you. This is a annual housekeeping item to declare the taxable value of all properties in our township. And we completed this, the assessor completed this, and then met with the treasurer, myself, and the clerk to go over it, to verify the amounts, and when it's approved tonight, it will be filed with the county by the clerk.
Any questions? And we love it. We love it. Other, because it says all properties, says taxable value of all properties. Here's a list of additional properties that we have in order to make the 5,000,002. Out of that 5,000,002,
502 million.
well, I said 5,002. So out of that dollar amount, there are other properties that we tax. From this dollar amount, so I'm understanding it, these three are taken from that amount, and then what's left is all our other properties.
Sure.
That was not terribly convincing. It was on the right page.
The 502,000,
Okay,
18300 is the taxable value of the Charter Township of Bath as it is today. That's the taxable value of all the properties in Bath. It consists of all your different taxing units in Bath. You have 4 school districts, you have 3 ISDs, you have LCC, you have 2 counties, did I say LCC?
Yeah.
The 3 ISDs, and the school districts, the township, that includes the township, the millage, and there's a taxable thing here for operating, obviously, the township police and fire and the library, but the 502,180, 300 is the value of each and every one that's in this room, if they're a homeowner in Bath, of their home values, plus everybody else is 4,496 parcels, I think. Sorry to keep track of it, it goes up every time. That's what that value is.
Okay.
Incidentally, that is the second assessed, or you know how I feel about this, it may not be fairly assessed. That's included, that makes up this number.
okay, that's what I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Something to be proud of, really, is to say you live in a community that's the second highest provider of services and taxable dollars to our county. We are important for our county. Each and every one of you should say that they're important to your county. And this is a big deal. It's important.
I'm joking, but that's okay. All right, that answered my question, that's what I needed to know.
Yeah.
Item for action, so I guess, are there any questions other than mine? So, we take a vote, or a second? Any
Wait.
motion?
Are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion
To approve it?
to 222 tax rate request L 429 to approve.
I'll support it. Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes-Gillis?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. This one is an interesting one. This would be 14, make sure I'm on the right, so you guys are all on the right page.
Marie,
Yes,
did we decide to extend the time of the meeting today?
no, we did not.
Okay.
So anything this after 9, it's put on the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
You want time for public comments too?
yes.
Okay.
So what you're asking is that we stop this point?
Just clarifying, if that's what you want to do, I'll support whatever you want to do.
Because we have one more to go, and that will take some discussion.
I know Al turns into a pumpkin after 9, so.
Yes, he does. And pumpkins can't vote, so. All right, let's do that. We'll do public comments. The remainder of this,
I couldn't pick up a new topic after that.
correct. We haven't had a topic. What topic?
I would like to take this one off.
Oh, you're asking that the IT, right,
Contract be discussed tonight. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Then you want to extend beyond the 9 o'clock?
You just can't think of another new topic after 9 o'clock.
No, but it has to be voted whether or not we do that, because it's going to take you beyond 9 o'clock. So you know what to go beyond 9 o'clock? You guys want to sit until after 9? I'm not hearing anything, so does that mean no, or does that mean yes?
Does this have to be done, this meeting?
I would like it to be done.
Does it have to be done?
I think we can get it done.
Along with public comments?
Yes.
Then you want to extend beyond 9 o'clock?
No, I move to authorize Superintendent Hildebrandt to execute an agreement for computer services with IT Right as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, you discuss.
Is there a cost in here? I think I missed a page. Oh, I see, it's on the last page, I'm sorry. Is that a chain, what's,
It's a slight-
do you get the words I'm trying to say?
It's a slight increase over what we're currently paying,
Thank
but
you.
it's an accurate cost of the number of computers that they're agreeing to service.
Okay. Do you see us getting more or better service for this
Yes.
cost, or the same?
Better, more.
Okay.
All right,
That's correct,
go
right?
ahead.
I actually have to comment.
Yep, your comment or question may be similar.
I'm not going to be very popular, but that's fine.
You're fine.
I inserted myself into this process. This process was done without the knowledge of the clerk or the treasurer until after it was done, when we made the switch. I inserted myself into the discussion as far as what was going to take place in the evening meeting on Thursday night. I can't give you the date, I don't remember if Karen knows probably. And we went over the review, I believe it was, that the gentleman had reviewed the whole process. The process, halfway through, he stopped and asked if we had any questions, and I made the comment, I says, what you're telling me, we're gonna spend about $1 million to upgrade this system here in this township. And he said, actually, I believe he told me the number was more like $1.3 million. I understand why we're doing it. I don't disagree with why we're doing it. I don't agree with the way the business is done. You know that as well as anybody, I've told you that. I believe that there should have been an RFP. I think that there should have been a broader one to see who was available. I think it's an awful lot of money to salary yourself with. You're gonna salary yourself, it looks like about $55,000 a year for service agreement for what we are, for just a basic service agreement.
So I'm confused. I mean,
My vote today would be no. And it's not because we don't need it, it's because I don't agree with the way it was done. I And that's fun, that's point of thing.
And I'm going to track on your.
You asked about service, Saturday or Friday, we had the issue here, everybody's gone but myself. When I'm saying out is, and the people who work in the front office staff here, and we had computers went out. I was gone for 10 days for vacation before, the week before taxes, the end of taxes. People came in to pay the bill, computers didn't work. They had that issue from what my deputy tells me throughout the week when I was gone before. They had lots of issues. You can have these issues. I don't blame the new firm for that. The only thing I will say is we didn't seem to have this issue in the 20 years of me being a treasurer here before. With that being said, now everything's old and the can probably got kicked down the road by the former superintendents that didn't want to spend the money to do what we got to do. But I still think that our business practice is flawed in doing this. I think the clerk and treasurer are the ones who have to take and deal with this stuff. And we should have been at least included in the proposal. I was lucky enough to, like I said, to insert myself into it, and I understand what they're saying about the liabilities and fear. I told you that. But I don't agree with what it's done. I won't vote for it.
And I have a question with the fact, were there bids?
There did not have to be sealed bids.
Why not?
Because of our purchasing policy.
Okay.
It says computer, software, things
It
like that are
says-
outside of the bid.
Well, but it doesn't give you a cost.
No, any computer or software stuff.
And really, you're not agreeing you're only agreeing to the
This is the service.
service agreement.
Right.
The capital asset value of this stuff and what you're gonna have to replace, like servers and machines. And I'm one of the persons that should be complaining, I should be dancing on the table here, because my computer's the oldest computer in the building.
It is.
It's on
So
Windows,
mine?
for those who know anything about computers,
It
I'm
is.
on Windows 7.
It's his old.
Yes, that's great.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
So I mean, but I mean, I'm a hard guy to
I thought
pin
mine was
down to
oldest.
get that to change because of my security, my busyness, and what everything I deal with. But,
Whoa.
that's the reason why it's the way it is, and I understand that. But and I don't mean anything personal, to either one of you two ladies for the way this thing is done, but I don't approve of it, but that's just business, that's my choice, that's what I got voted in here for, to approve this. And that's the way I feel about it, but I'm hoping that we're able to take and move forward and do something good and do something that's positive with this. And I think the township probably ought to invest the money in the equipment if we need it, because qualified voter poll thing is pretty secure, and it needs to be secure. We hear a lot about that on the
We do
news.
hear a lot about that.
And we have a police department next door that operates on lien. That's the law enforcement lien agreement, that's the law enforcement agreement, that all has to be secure. And so there's lots of things you gotta think about. You can't think with your pocketbook every minute, but I think with the business aspect of it, I think there should have been an RFP, and we should have had, we owed the public a little more decision on doing this versus just doing
What's the
it
RFP?
without request for proposal. And I learned that from my fellow colleague, Mr. El Marici, in the last 3 years. I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you. So, okay, I just want to kind of parse out the various components here. So one component is that we have hired or are looking to hire a computer services firm to support our IT infrastructure. The contract amount for that is nominally higher than the current contract or the past contract with the past provider. So there's that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and put some pieces here. My guess is that the new firm may have done a security audit of our system.
They did an assessment of our system, correct.
And the $1 million that you're referring to likely came from a set of recommendations to come up to, what is it?
Standards.
Up to DMT standards for security, especially for our police force.
Correct.
So the issue, as all due respect, with the issue of how this unfolded from a business process, I would be wary about calling into question this contract for a contractor who immediately brought to our awareness the deficiencies of the security of our computer systems. So, to me, I mean, those deficiencies, I would argue is probably related to deficiencies of service from the prior contractor, not the new contractor coming in and say, well, X, Y, and Z, this is where we've got limitations.
I think that's a big assumption. But that's, no, and
Spend a lot of tax dollars money.
Yes,
You're not,
I shouldn't do this snippets, but I
it
do.
wouldn't take that much, it wouldn't take that much to be a little more broad on your selection of this and work through it. I actually talked with the other company today that she did speak with, which is our accounting people, mainly, because there's an IT thing. And they was dumbfounded to know that we talked on a whole other game of things, but there Stevens was dumbfounded, no, he didn't know anything about it. He thought the meeting went well, we did a Zoom meeting with folks. I thought it went well. And I said, well, I hate to tell you this, but it didn't go well. But that's the piece of it. I just feel, I agree with you 100% what you're saying about the deficiencies, but I would like to have one more firm give us the same scenario. And say, hey, look what we're doing here. Well, I'm gonna tell you what they're gonna say, 'cause I have to answer the dollars when we go, and you and I have talked about this, but I'm gonna say it. I have to answer these dollars when I'm here as a treasurer, and they're doing this audit, and it goes through the audit process. They look and see what you're gonna spend here, what it's gonna cost you, and you know what they're gonna say? Who's getting the take on this? And they look you right between the eyes when they ask you that. And you have to be able to tell them back. You don't flinch, you don't blink. You say no. You say nobody is, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not. But it's the appearance of the way we did it. That's the whole piece of it. It doesn't appear correct. I don't care how right it is. Even the things I do, I try to make an appearance and try to do things as a treasurer to make the appearance that we are doing our diligent duties to what we're supposed to do. And I think we failed on this. I'm sorry, I don't mean you failed. I think that as a township, we failed.
Trustee, finally, yes.
Thanks. So I am not surprised by this contract. When I was on the board the first time, I'm not an IT person by any means, but I told Dan Waiticha that that was not the right firm for us. So I'm glad to see we're moving away from them finally. My question to you, Steve, is I hear what you're saying. I support your thoughts on this. What happens if we vote this thing down? Do you guys have internet tomorrow? Do you have computers tomorrow? Like, what happens?
We didn't have a Friday, so I guess we'll do the same thing.
Sure. So how long do you go without internet and computers if we vote this down?
I don't think you can do that.
No, can't.
However, it's pretty solid rock contract. I mean, they're going for 3 years. You don't even have a 30-year contract with your accounting folks, which is probably equally as important, if not more important than what this is. So I mean, that's I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know who selected this or who offered this thing, but once again, I think that we could have done better. I think we owe community more than what we're bigger than this. We're better than this.
We are better than that. Quick question. Actually, I have a couple questions, one that kind of follows through with what you're saying. Did we ever ask, Jason, did we ever ask our other computer people to do an evaluation? We just asked them to come in and do, right? Did we ask them to do an
Did I
evaluation?
ask-
As we did Dan Eggleton?
Consultants on call to do one? No, I did
No,
not.
okay,
No,
so-
because
so-
they were already not adequately servicing our business.
Oh,
That was my feeling,
okay.
is that
So-
we had 4 brand-new computers that were sitting in the basement that were not able to be put in service for months at a time.
Okay. Did you say something to them about it?
I did.
Okay, and they
Yes.
ignored it?
Correct.
Okay.
It's still, those still sat there and the issues weren't fixed.
Because this contract's coming after the fact. they already, and you're right, we turn it down, what happens, because they're already integrated.
Well, we're paying them on
To
an
what
hour,
we're doing.
we're paying them on an hourly basis
That
at
would
this
be-
time.
But this contract now comes to us after the fact. After they've already been hired, after they're already
They're-
doing an hourly.
They're working, that's correct.
Yeah, they
Yes.
are, and that's what you're experiencing with commuters being down, is because they are working. So I'm a little confused that the contract's coming after the fact.
I think that's pretty common, I think that happens,
Yeah.
I think you move here,
Okay.
that's some commonplace type thing, nobody's gonna come in here, and nobody's gonna take on a job that has the potential of having $1 million worth of infrastructure problems. You're gonna have, probably having something in writing, because they're gonna invest a lot of time, people, and whatever money into getting this thing to make it work.
Because this Dan
And
Eccleston,
it's the right, I told the superintendent this, and the deputy superintendent as well, when we had that meeting, you did the right thing here, I just don't think, I think we should review the way our purchasing policy is, and I think we should review our thing for, what we're doing here in a way of having RFPs and doing things of that sorts to be able to do that. I don't think personally, that if I was that person, I wouldn't want it, I don't think one person should be deciding this, I think the board should have took it, they had choices,
Well,
they
that's-
should have went back to the board. When you hire an auditor to audit financial statements, you have to have, the board gets, like we did the last time, you had a packet of everybody did a proposal, you all looked at it, you all agreed on it, you move forward. And it's a tough thing to say. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit anal about doing business, and everybody here that knows me knows that. I'm not afraid to tell you what I think. And I just think that we missed the boat here on this just a little bit. I think it's great that we hired a township, company from the township, and they actually are a backup to BSNA software, which is our folks that does most of our accounting software and everything else we have here across the street. However, they're a public company, they just sold, and they're owned now by a company in Georgia or someplace.
so this company sold to another.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
But, so that's all, that's my feeling on this, I just don't feel it was proper. That,
Okay.
you can
Right.
vote on it any way you wanna vote.
You have long arms.
I did.
That works.
I was trying to
That
stretch.
works.
Karen, do you bring all contracts to us, or do you have some sort of contracting authority given to you? Like, I think we're clear on what the treasurer is saying, and I think we probably agree that maybe this could have been done differently. But like, what is your actual authority that you've been granted to manage things like
I'm the
this?
purchasing agent for the township. This did not need a sealed bid. In managing the efficiency and effectiveness of this service, I did not believe that that was occurring, and so I made the move to change it.
So in a technical sense, you have this authority, but we're saying we'd like this type of thing to come to us in the future.
And that can happen.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
I've never seen a contract with the prior service provider, right?
I couldn't locate one.
And isn't this the same provider that services DeWitt and Meridian and large?
So to my knowledge, yes, I consulted with my counterparts in DeWitt Township, the city of DeWitt, and SCUMA, because they all use this company and they've been very satisfied.
When did they sell? Just recently?
And I'm probably messing up and provide the same level of service, but I also haven't done a full system scan of this.
Any other questions? All right. Somebody gonna make a motion?
I don't think there's been a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion, Yep, Al said.
Oh, is already gonna, what's the motion? Make sure that we understand that.
Motion by trustee Almarigi and support by trustee Rosecrans to authorize Superintendent Hildebrand to execute a computer service agreement contract with IT Right as presented. Is that right?
So Treasurer Wisswasser, would you be more comfortable if there was a second bid, or?
No, I think what I'll be comfortable about is if we, just because and it's already been discussed here, just because we're approving this contract, that doesn't mean we're approving the $1,300,000 for
Okay.
infrastructure to be spent. And each one of them pieces as a capital asset, the township will come back to this board, and that's what my goal was here, to make sure you was aware of that, and you were gonna bring this back, if you were gonna look at it.
So it's possible we won't pay them.
Well, I wouldn't say it's not possible, you can enter into a contract, you're gonna pay them, but that's not the point. The point is the infrastructure is where the money is here. When you're talking $1 million for infrastructure, in excess of $1 million, well, beyond the service agreement, that's where, that will come back to the township, and you'll get it, and we think the superintendent will give us updates as they do that, and as they take progress.
So based on the evaluation that was first conducted, we will have a project manager that we will meet with, and we will determine with them how to move forward and what to replace with. What to replace first, what our priorities are, in lines of security, servers, computer equipment, and what we have and what we need to go forward, so.
They'll actually list this in your audit, your financial statements, and they'll want to know this potential liability of what you have and what you're gonna experience in the next couple of years could be significant. This is gonna be a significant purchase, and that's what they're gonna look at, and that will cover you in that aspect, because I'm not lying to you, that's exactly what they say. They look at you, you tell them, yeah, we just have a new service provider, we're gonna spend $1 million for upgrades, and the first question's out of their mouth, and they're serious, they're dead cold serious, they're gonna look at you, they do this every day, and say, who's getting a cut of this? That's just what they're gonna say, and that's what their job is to detect fraud, detect that kind of thing, corruption, or anything else, and I'm a little bit anal about that. I got a pretty good record in this department of keeping the township on a pretty good path here, and I take a lot of pride in it. And I would like to know a little more about this.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
I'm telling the board this morning.
But just to be clear, you don't think fraud happened here, right, Steve?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I just want to make,
There's nothing you're doing here other than you're doing a service agreement.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Going forward, you need to make sure that you're gonna spend $1 million with these people. They need different, whether you spend $1 million with these computers, or on police cars, or policemen, or firemen, or whatever you're gonna spend it on. You need to be transparent about what you're buying. There's no fraud here.
Okay.
That's not the case. Is there for business here? There was a preferred way of doing this. I think it would have been more preferred. With the amount of money we're talking, the amount of liability we have here that we have to invest in the township, it's important. You gotta have it.
All right, there's no more discussion, we're ready for vote.
Ms. Howe?
No.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Okay.
No.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes.
Thought you were gonna leave me off that one. Marie, can I ask a follow-up question?
As soon as I'm meeting with this?
Yeah.
Okay, because we always voted on it.
Yeah.
What's your follow-up question?
So do we want to task Karen with bringing back changes to the purchasing policy? That would help prevent this from happening in the future?
The only thing that I would say, if you were going to do that, would be that there was some other information. Is that what you're saying?
No, I just heard the treasurer say we should look at our purchasing policy.
Actually, I spoke today with Chief Accountant, or Steve from Mayor Gusterson, about an array of different items, but we talked about this specifically. And he said that we could look into it. This is like a few other policies we have that we check some balances we could look at. This is for the better of everybody. It's not for anything against the two ladies down there at the end. It's for the betterment of everybody here, including the people sitting in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I was responsible for partially writing that purchasing policy, so I'll take the blame for this one.
All right, so what did we end up with? 4-2, 6-5-2?
4-2.
4-2. That's right. Okay, what we're going to do is public comments, second statement. Then we're going to have to put the short-term rental on next meeting, October 2nd.